Donald Trump and his campaign declare victory after the Judge Chutkan Gag order comes down split. The D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals issued a 68-page opinion. We're going to hit the highlights on it. We know that they want to gag Trump. Part of the reason you prosecute somebody is to put them in shackles. He is not in physical custody, but he is gagged and he has to show up in court and deal with all this nonsense. And so Chutkan gagged him, said, you can't talk about Jack Smith and the deranged thugs over there. But the problem is Trump has the First Amendment and free speech, and we want him to be able to criticize the very people who are violating his rights. That's why we have the First Amendment. And so when Trump was gagged, Trump took it up on appeal. I think ultimately this will land at the Supreme Court, but it's at the Court of Appeals first. We'll see what it says. We're also going to hear reaction from John Bolton, who was inside Psaki on MSNBC. He says Trump is even worse than Nixon, and Trump might even start eliminating his own cabinet or something like that, according to this guy. So we'll have some fun stuff to get to. First, Donald Trump declares victory on this ruling, and it's a nice one. He says, today, the D.C. Circuit Court panel, with each judge appointed by a Democrat president, determined that a huge part of Judge Chutkan's extraordinarily overbroad gag order was unconstitutional. It says President Trump will continue to fight for the First Amendment rights of tens of millions of Americans to hear from the leading presidential candidate at the height of his campaign. The Biden-led witch hunts against President Trump and the American people will fail. That's from Stephen Chung, a Trump spokesman. So this is what the opinion looks like from the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, and we're going to get right into it after a quick message from our friends. Hate feeling miserable the day after drinks? I did too. Luckily, a game-changing product called ZBiotics is here to help. ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. It's designed to work like your liver, but in your gut where you need it most. Just remember to drink ZBiotics before drinking alcohol, drink responsibly, and get a good night's sleep to feel your best tomorrow. That's it. I wish I had this during law school. Here's how it works. They come in little bottles, very convenient. You give one a good shake, twist the top off, drink the whole thing, and you're done. Easy. I got the 6-pack, which looks like this. It comes with an instructional booklet, has a very simple twist top right here, and every bottle has a reminder to drink responsibly. So this holiday season, give your family and friends the gift of a better tomorrow with ZBiotics. Go to zbiotics.com/RobertG or scan the QR code on the screen right now to get 15% off your first order when you use code RobertG at checkout. You can also sign up for a subscription using my code so you can stay prepared no matter the time or the occasion. ZBiotics is backed by a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember, head to zbiotics.com/RobertG and use the code RobertG at checkout for 15% off. And thank you to ZBiotics for sponsoring this segment. And now, the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, they split the gag order. As we saw, Trump excited about this, saying that a big portion of this is in fact unconstitutional. Let's see what the court holds for us. This one filed out of the United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia, the D.C. Circuit. A 68-pager. We'll hit the highlights here. And you'll notice this little thing that we see up top here. We don't see this on many filings that we cover here. This is the public copy. Sealed information has been deleted. Wouldn't it be nice to have some transparency from our own government? I mean, if Trump is such an insurrectionist, can't we just know everything about it? What do they have to hide everything for us? It's a public person being prosecuted for a purely public crime who's running for another public office being prosecuted in a public court of law. Why is everything hidden from us? Okay, so we're at the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. We know that Donald Trump has appealed this, and we're expecting him to take this up another notch to the U.S. Supreme Court now that this case has come back down, but we'll see, maybe not. Here is the understanding of what's happening. All the parties were there, and the court gets us started as follows. You see, all the people were there arguing it, including Molly, including Thomas Wyndham and James Pierce and all of the other deranged thugs. And here, the judges, Millett, Pillard, and Garcia are all writing. They say, all right, here's the story, America. A federal grand jury came out and indicted former President Trump for conspiring to overturn the election through unlawful means. That happened out of D.C. saying soon thereafter, Mr. Trump posted multiple statements on his social media account on Truth, attacking potential witnesses in the case, including the judge and the special counsel and his staff for prosecuting the case in the first place, saying the district court subsequently issued an order restraining the parties. This is Judge Chutkan, and said that any statements that, quote, target the parties and their counsel and staff are not acceptable, saying that any reasonably foreseeable witness or the substance of their testimony are off limits. Reasonably foreseeable witness, which is basically everybody, because January 6th was a pretty big event. Donald Trump was the president, a lot of people involved in his administration. So what does that mean? Do we even have a witness list? Or can they just decide Trump has said something bad and it covers that, right? It's totally amorphous. I have no idea what they even mean. So then Trump appealed the order. Now his appeal now involves the confluence of two paramount constitutional interests. And we've said this here, right? It's the rock versus the immovable force. It's the unstoppable object against the immovable force. The freedom of speech under the First Amendment, and then the federal courts and the criminal due process. So orderly administration of justice versus the First Amendment. And I like how they reference it as Article 3 duty. Okay, so it's like they're just going to take up the entire article. All right, so they're going to take all of Article 3 of the Constitution versus the First Amendment. All right, well, an article's bigger than a single amendment. So maybe I'm reading too much into it. I don't think so. To ensure the fair and orderly administration of justice. By gagging Trump, don't give me that. Don't tell me that the entire, like, Article 3 and fair and orderly administration of justice is in any way corroborated or correlated or causally connected to Trump's gag. Ugh. So they're just going to dump on the First Amendment as though it's meaningless. All right. We agree with Judge Chutkan that some aspects of Trump's statements pose a significant and imminent threat to the fair and orderly adjudication of the ongoing criminal proceedings. So Trump loses that, warranting a speech constraining a protective order. Lose. Now, the district court's order, however, Judge Chutkan, it sweeps in more protected speech than is necessary. Obviously, the heck is a reasonably foreseeable witness. For that reason, we affirm Chutkan's order in part and also vacate, dump the rest of it. Specifically, the order is affirmed to the extent that it prohibits all parties and their lawyers from making or directing others to make public statements about known or reasonably foreseeable witnesses concerning their potential participation in the investigation of this proceeding, which is insane as far as I'm concerned. I think they should appeal this. I don't even know, unless there's a witness list, which is to my understanding still in flux. Like, what does that mean? Like, is Liz Cheney on that list? I don't know. Can they ask that? Is Liz Cheney on that list? Can he respond to her? She was there, right? On January 6th. She was there on the committee. So the order is also affirmed to the extent that it prohibits all parties and their counsels from making or directing public statements about the counsel in the case other than special counsel. Okay, so he can comment about deranged thug Jack Smith, but not about Molly or Jay Bratt, which I guess is up to us. We're going to have to keep making fun of Highlighter Girl here, I guess. You know, it's her own fault, man. She shouldn't have talked about organizing the defense discovery. What a ridiculous thing to say. So counsel in the case other than special counsel like Molly and Jay, we can't talk about them, or he can't, we can. Now, members of the court staff and their counsel's staffs, which I don't think, this is the Judge Chutkan courtroom, so I don't think that there were any concerns about games of footsie with Judge Chutkan's staff. I don't think. We haven't seen anything like that. I don't think that her clerk has been whispering in her ear playing footsie. I don't know. But I don't know if that's happening with Judge Ariola Engeron either. You know, it's just people have rumors that are being discussed because they move the cameras around in the New York case. So it's strange. Now, members of the court staff, now again, I'm not in favor of that. Now, in favor of harassing or threatening anybody because it's already illegal. Now, the members of any counsel or staff member, if those statements are made with intent to materially interfere with the knowledge of the criminal case, okay, and we vacate the order to the extent that it covers speech beyond those specified categories, which is just very, very ambiguous. So we get a little bit, you know, I'm not sure I would declare this as big of a victory as Trump made it sound, to be honest. I think that he should be free. He should know who the witnesses are specifically. I really hate this reasonably foreseeable crap. I don't even know what that means because it's a broad case. There's 13 million pages of documents here, right? If I'm a defense lawyer representing Trump, I'm saying, no, wait a minute. What's the list? Because it's a big case. There's 13 million pages of materials. You said I can't even read them, so I need to know who's in there. Amazing. We've got notice and updates on SCOTUS. Now, on August 1st, we're going to just run through this very briefly just to share with you what this looks like here. It says the conduct charged in the indictment is out of Trump's refusal to concede his loss. And during the alleged efforts to overturn the election, here is some of the deleted stuff. Another official explained that he needed additional police protection and he avoided the something. And this is from from special counsel. He avoided the what? Grocery store? He didn't walk his dog? Okay. And after then, Trump criticized a government office for certifying an election. A member of that office had to look over her shoulder when one of Trump's supporters posted her address online. Oh, wow. Is she a public official or what's the deal? But then, okay, Trump singled out private individuals. He singled out an election worker, and they're mentioning that, which I think Rudy Giuliani is on trial for. Then Trump said this: if you go after me, I'm coming after you. And he posted that on 6 million follower Truth Social account, which is true. This is politics, right? This is just how it works. Now, they prosecuted him 4 times with 4 different criminal indictments. It's fair game, man. If he gets control of the judiciary, what do you think's going to happen? Everybody who was part of this vindictive prosecution, partisan lawfare attack arguably is committing crimes, right? Under a different interpretation of the rules. So if they're going to interpret the rules to prosecute Trump, he can interpret the rules to prosecute them, right? It's just how this works. It's capture the flag. So that's why they're so freaked out. Now, the district court first explained that Trump could comment about DC. Trump said this was a significant risk to him, and a lot of procedural stuff here. Now, they say we begin here with our jurisdiction. After all of that, we begin, and we have the authority to hear this case, talking about collateral order doctrine. And the idea is that Trump has the right to appeal this, even though the January 6th case is not completed yet. It's not done. His gag is limiting his ability to speak, which is causing him actual harm right now. We have jurisdiction under that doctrine. What are we going to do? Whether the order violates the Constitution is a question of the law, subject to de novo review. We're going to review everything fresh, like it's brand new in front of us. Saying 2 constitutional values intersect here: the right to free speech and the right to a fair and functioning criminal justice system. Now, they give us some First Amendment stuff. They say political speech is the lifeblood of American democracy. It used to be. We don't have much of it anymore. It allows the free exchange of ideas among individuals about governance and political process. Yeah, would it be nice? And that's from another case. Now, whatever difference is, we should be able to talk about it. And for that reason, the First Amendment has its most fullest application to political speech. Free speech also holds government officials accountable, including deranged thugs and partisan hack prosecutors. As relevant here, speech about judicial proceedings, especially criminal proceedings, promotes transparency in the legal system and guards against the miscarriage of justice. And so we need adequate breathing space for robust speech. In addition, even protected speech may sometimes be regulated, though. And Trump, like all people, does also have a fundamental right to a fair trial. And this is going to be curious. They say Trump's right to a fair trial does not give him to insist upon the opposite of that right. That is, a trial that's prejudiced in his favor. So I guess Trump is going to be speaking too loudly that he's going to bias DC, and the courts must take steps to protect the integrity of the criminal process. And so they can abridge speech, right? They say their speech generally can be abridged if there is a clear and present danger to the administration of justice. Now, that is a phrase right there. Clear and present danger. Is what Trump is truthing about meeting that standard? Courts have an obligation to protect the court system, and while courts have quite limited authority to silence speech, sometimes they do. In this case, we found that they did. The Supreme Court also held that the First Amendment allows the court to prohibit the speech of a trial participant when the speech poses a substantial likelihood of material prejudice to the proceeding. Now, they say the court was explicit that the standard applied does not apply to speech by a lawyer whose client is a defendant in a criminal proceeding, because lawyers are officers of the court. Now, the question is, for who? Like, what are we protecting and for who? Does the defendant want speech limited so that he gets a fair trial, or does he want the speech to be broad so that he gets a fair trial? Now, in that case, it involved regulating the speech of counsel for a criminal defendant, but it also says that the court has the authority to control. Criminal defendants are frequently subject to substantial liberty restrictions. It's true, right? And this is what they say. No, you already have to show up. You already give up your right to travel. You already give up your right to leave the country. You already give up your right to go do this and go do that. So why not your free speech too? To sum up, they say, the Constitution requires a robust protection of speech about criminal trials and the government's effort to deprive a defendant of that liberty. Now, at the same time, it requires courts to ensure that outside speech does not derail the criminal process. And on this record, they say the constitutional path for the presiding judge to protect both free speech and fair and orderly administration was not to limit what outsiders can say about the trial, but to appropriately delimit whether trial participants, including the accused, what they can say publicly about other witnesses or outsiders. And so they say, we hold that Judge Chutkan had the authority to restrain Trump's speech that present a significant and imminent risk to the fair and orderly administration of justice, and that there's no other less restrictive alternatives that would adequately address this. And so we hold that it was not narrowly tailored, and we modify its scope a little bit to bring it within constitutional bounds. Signed by the DC Circuit Court of Appeals. And the opinion goes on, but you see the thrust of it there. And it is now up to Trump to see whether or not he will be appealing this and taking this up to the higher level courts. But Trump is declaring victory because a portion of that was found unconstitutional, and he now can talk about Jack Smith and the deranged thug that he is, and according to Trump. And he's not allowed to talk about the other prosecutors, though. So it's a partial win there. Now, this is John Bolton, who we know likes war everywhere he turns. And he was inside Jen Psaki on MSNBC's #1 show. And this is what it sounded like, saying, that Trump is acting like somebody who's even worse than Nixon with all this speech and all this talking and all of this lawyering that's happening. He's the worst. Here's what it sounds like.
I want to start with this. You have dealt with dictators. In your role as a national security high-level official over the years, do you see similarities in some of the tactics that Trump is taking to what you've seen from authoritarian dictators?
Well, certainly what he has tried to do in the past and what he's saying he's going to do in the future go well beyond any conceivable conduct by prior American presidents, no matter how much they were considered. Richard Nixon looks like a choir boy next to Donald Trump. So I think him saying these things publicly, ironically, I have to say, helpful, because I think people should wake up to the reality, and all the polls don't look particularly good on the Republican side, to continue to make efforts to deny him the nomination.
I want to start with this. You have dealt with dictators. In your role as...
All right, so that's the Walrus, I think is what he was called, often talking about Trump and what a maniac he is, even though this guy was the person taking us into war after war after war everywhere you turn. Now, including more TDS is this guy. Now, he's worried that Donald Trump might actually eliminate people if he's allowed to squeeze through this legal maneuver and escape criminal culpability for what they say is insurrection and other things. Then Trump literally might be able to eliminate people in his cabinet, might be able to just go in there and just take out his vice president. Let's listen.
I screenshot this and highlighted it. You write, the existing constitutional system has no room for the subversive legal maneuvers of a criminal in chief. If a president can pardon himself for federal crimes, as Trump would likely try to do, then he could write his pardon in advance and shoot visitors to the White House.
Yeah, he's going to claim a right of self-pardon, but think about it. If the president can pardon himself for criminal offenses, that means he can shoot the first lady, and maybe he's impeached, but nothing. You know what else
Melania?
It means? Even weirder? It means the vice president can pick up a pistol,
why would he do
walk
that?
into the Oval Office, shoot the president dead, and say, I'm the president now, pardon. And
wow.
Although, again, maybe there's an impeachment, no criminal penalty. That is so crazy, it can't be right. But that is what we're going to be debating 2 years from now if this man returns to office.
Right, it's incredible.
Okay, well, it sounds pretty exciting, actually. It sounds like kind of like Game of Thrones or something, like Survivor presidency. Trump did have The Apprentice, we could call it The Presidency, starring Donald Trump. Oh, you want another war in the Middle East? Sorry, buddy. You're gone. You're fired. I don't know what the story is over there. It sounds exciting. We'll have a lot less bureaucrats. It's a joke. I don't endorse what this guy is deluded about. He should probably get a therapist, or, I don't know, but he sounds like he thinks that everybody's just going to be shooting each other in the Oval Office if Trump wins. So, all right, my friends, that's what they're talking about over there. And that is the gag order. Okay. If Trump is allowed to speak or exist, people are just going to be dropping dead in the streets, according to them. And it's a wild scene. Now, we'll be here continuing to cover these trials and more, my friends. So thank you for subscribing wherever it is you're watching this. Thanks for sharing the show with a friend or family member, inviting them to come over here and join us when we go live. We have all of the PDFs available at robertgovea.com, so you can go over there, sign up for our daily newsletter, get all these segments bundled up, delivered right to your inbox, so you can forward the news stories onto your friends and family. We'll be looking forward to seeing you here on the next one.